Hi D. Let me share this with the people I usually share this with. Hi Suto, hello. Trying to get my audience in here. Um, It's a Saturday and it's like 6:30. I think anybody is doing too much. Oh my God. Hi Gabby. Gab's mom, hello. Trying to get my people on here. I think I'm gonna wait like 10 minutes before I start this discussion. Oh, great. Great. Garbage artist. Hi, hello. Hello. Big Bandy, hello. Big Dandy. Whoops. Okay, notifying some people that I'm currently live. Who else is in here? Oh, what's up, Maya? Hey, girl. Trying to get some other people in here, too. Yeah, I think I pretty much shared it with her. Hey. Hello. So something has kind of been... Hi, Gabby. Something has kind of been bugging me. Today, I think I kind of received a lot of downloads. A lot of stuff has just been generating in my mind. I think the first thing, however, that I want to talk about is artists. Artists in America versus artists in other countries, right? So America, to me, is very rooted in consumerism, right? In the way that people view desirability is if multiple people want to consume you, right? Then this is equivalent to how desirable you are, right? And so people here equate desirability with love. It's very interesting. But more importantly, I think another thing that I kind of noticed was, when you start to elevate, let's say in your appearance, in your, your content, whatever, maybe your financial status, whatever, people who consume, let's say consume a lot, right? Or they consume frequently from you, whatever it is. What ends up happening, especially amongst influencers, if you've ever noticed this, is that people feel entitled to consume all that you have created, right? Art, creativity is made in a way, or rather it's positioned in a way here in this country as it's up for consumption, right? If no one wants to consume you here, then you are deemed, or rather treated, as less valuable, if that makes sense. And so I think about just certain artists that are not from here that have stayed true to their, I want to say, appearance, like they haven't really changed much because of how oversexed America is. I believe if they came here, they would be rejected, right? Because they're not putting their flesh on display. And it's not just their flesh, it's not flesh per se, but what it is people, Americans we feel entitled to consuming more than your creativity. We want to consume you, right? That's the thing about making a brand as attractive as possible. That's like what I'm doing and whatnot. It's not just your art that is to be consumed. You are to be consumed too. If you and your way of being does not make people feel something, right? Or it doesn't make them, you don't make them feel a way about you, or you don't make them feel better about themselves, people will not consume you. Therefore, you will be less valuable in the industry, right? Or just here in general, right? And so when I was looking at artists and I was listening to their music, right? Let's say recently I've been listening to a lot of French music, right? Much of their music is heavily based in storytelling, right? If they come over here and they do not gentrify, dilute their music, and they do not present themselves as something to consume, they will not sell, right? And so, I don't know, I kind of learned that very quickly because I was comparing artists that are made over here, right? They're typically, we present artists over here as things to consume, right? Your value is based on how many people want to consume you, right? That's the thing about consumption. It has nothing to do with respect, right? It's actually a breaching of respect. That's why consumers feel very entitled to artists, whether that be music, whether that be visual arts, whether that be writing, right? Like whatever it is, once you start to elevate in more ways than one, I want to say people that, yeah, yeah, it's sad, but it's a trend that I have noticed. I'm like, wow, oh, hey, Cheryl. I don't think you've ever caught my live. What's up? No, but I was just talking about consumption here in America. I was specifically talking about art and artists, right? And last night I was listening to French music. I've been listening to French music for a really long time. But what I notice in terms of the difference between artists, right? Artists here versus artists in other countries. When artists come here, your value just logged on. I know. Nice. No, I'm glad. But when artists come here, they are positioned in a way where you cannot sell unless people want to consume you, right? And so your desirability is measured by how many people want to consume you. Not just your music, not just your art, but your body as well, right? Like you, right? How much people want to consume you as a person. That is the metric, the measuring stick of desirability, right? The more people desire you, the more they should want to consume you. This is only here, right? What I noticed, the reason why I was able to make this distinction is because I was noticing the appearance of artists that are not from here, right? That are not from America and do not come to America versus artists who are either from here or who do come here, right? They either have to water down their music, gentrify their art, right, in a way where it becomes more palatable to, American taste and whatnot, and so that it can be consumed more. Otherwise, if they come with their own frequency, which is, I want to say, more elevated than the frequency that's here in this country, we will reject it because we won't recognize it, right? I think about frequencies and sounds that are, I want to say, in the opposite direction, right? Two frequencies canceling each other out. We can't have that, right? America can't have that. This country is a factory, right? And so given that it's a factory, consumers is the bloodline of this country. It will not run if people are not consuming endlessly. I don't want to say endlessly, but a lot, insatiably. And so I just, as I was noticing this, I was like, desirability and consumerism are all within the same category, right? If nobody wants to consume you, then you're not desirable. That's how it's measured over here. And so because of how oversexed this country is, right? And how heavily consumer based everything is, to me, it keeps people from going beyond their body. Why? Because if my self-worth is measured by my desirability, which is also measured by who and what or how many people want to consume me, then I cannot go beyond the value of my body, right? I cannot go beyond who desires me, how many people desire me, right? Because this is all packaged in self-worth, right? And so we can never detach from our bodies, right? I'm not saying neglect your body, but I'm saying your body is a tool, right? The vessel is a tool for you to use. It's not your identity. But because of how much importance and self-worth and identity is placed on the body, right? And because of how overly sexed American culture is, right? We do not know who we are outside of consuming and being consumed, right? Like, it's like we do not know our value outside of other people's measurements of it, and that measurement is determined by desirability, and desirability is measured by how many, or yeah, I want to say how many people want to consume you, right? That, depending on how many people, that determines how valuable you are, right? That's why it's celebrities that people obsess over and just, they want more of them, right? In more ways than one. Those celebrities are seen as like super desirable, which makes them super valuable, right? And they're treated as a product, a commodity, and not really like a human being. But nobody really, in a country like this where it is heavily focused on the flesh, nobody wants to go beyond the identity of an animal, right? This country, as dense as it is, especially given the climate, to me keeps you at the level of an animal, right? You cannot go beyond it, because to go beyond it would mean to go beyond your body. It would mean to go beyond how people define it and label it, right? Your body, your physical vessel, right? Depending on how it makes a person feel, this is used to then determine your value in society, right? And it's not just your vessel, but it's all that comes out of your vessel, right? Maybe your voice, your art, right? Whatever it is. If it does not make a person feel a certain way, right? Then you will be discarded, typically, because I'm not saying that you should not service people. More so, your value is not based in who you are. It's based in how you can make people feel about themselves. This is how consumerism is this is like the root of consumerism. I want to say at least one of them. And so I kind of noticed that when comparing artists that are here versus artists that are not here, that are, in a different country, performing in their native tongue and whatnot. And I was so many things actually came to me, and I wasn't sure if I was going to share it all here, but I still have time. So one of the things that I noticed was the sound of English, right? And the frequency of the language versus the frequency of other languages, right? French, let's see, I don't know, Spanish, Arabic, like what comes out of your mouth, right? The syllables and whatnot. Language is a container for your emotions, right? And so when I was listening to French, right, versus when I was consuming a lot on social media in English, English is it's sharp, and the language is kind of cut. It's not long, right? There are not a lot of like O sounds or anything like that. There are not a lot of ah sounds or anything like that, and so the language is almost like cut short. And so what this does is it restricts breath, and it restricts the flow of sounds, right? And so when you lace this, I don't want to say bastard language, but it is a bastard language. When you lace this language with emotion, intensity, right? I'm sure you all have heard of the, words are spells, right? But to take it even further, sounds, the emotion that is laced in the language that you speak can affect your nervous system directly, right? English is already a language almost stripped of its creativity, right? If you listen to music from, other countries, like I was listening to French, it's heavily based in storytelling, right? It's quite beautiful, and the frequency is completely different, and so it has a direct impact on your nervous system. Versus when English is spoken, right? And it's laced with emotions and whatnot, or intensity, right? Or even the music here, it's like a dopamine cycle. And it doesn't end, so much so that it feels like you're either going to crash, or your brain, it activates the beta waves, right? Which are waves in your brain that trigger the fight or flight response, right? It's not supposed to slow your heart rate down. It's supposed to speed it up. And so given that this language is very survival based, it's cut short, and it's meant to be spoken fast, right? Whereas other languages are slower and longer. It has a direct impact on your nervous system. And what I learned is that when you speak too much, right, and you speak this language, if it is laced with maybe, let's say, too much intensity, resentment, some type of strong emotion, before it impacts anyone who you are speaking to, it will impact you first. The sound that is coming out of your mouth, out of your body, will impact your body first. It will impact your nervous system first, right? Because you hear yourself. Am I making sense? Wait. Good. Good. 500 million views going on now. So Crash Course, I'm not too sure. Yes, making sense. Oh, great. I'm glad. Great. I'm glad. So crazy enough, I put a lot of these downloads in voice notes. And, I think I went more into detail in those voice notes, which I will be sharing with you guys soon in my email list. Once I put the bundle together, it should be about 25 to 30 voice notes in there. I'll launch it and I'll present it to you. But it's basically all of the downloads that come to my mind throughout the day, like these, right? The direct impact, the direct impact that English has on your nervous system. The direct impact that English has on your nervous system, but also the sound right? Thank you, Crash Course. That the vibration that these sounds have on you. Saying English is stripped of creativity made me think of how Black people speak in metaphors. Yeah, right? Trying to reclaim some type of soul in the language, because it is without soul. It's used in transactions. It's best used in transactions, right? I get downloads too. They come out of nowhere. They be right. No, you gotta write those things down. Mine's come in my dreams as well. Absolutely. But I'm like, I think this would be helpful. I also wrote a newsletter on it that I'm gonna probably publish tonight, and you guys can get access to it. But when I felt that, because I felt like I was consuming way too much content, not only spoken word, but mostly, more specifically in written word, right? So it's not just physical noise that has an effect on your nervous system. It's also written word, right? And often I was writing a consultant at a university, and we always tell students standard English is, Yeah, English has an effect because it's commerce English. Wow. Can you go commerce English? Isn't that like buying, like, doing trade transactions, right? Maybe I'm not getting that right. Let me see. Oh, Yep. Okay, cool. Right? Okay, cool. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm glad I'm on the money. I'm glad we're on the same page. It is commerce English. Standard English is commerce. It's for transactional uses. And so when people try to speak life into you in a lifeless language, English is a dead language, right? And I call it a dead language because the soul has been stripped, right? There's a lot of, the sounds are very sharp and edged, right? And so it's very easy to offend because of the nature of the language. And when I realized I was reading too much content in English, right? And the thing about social media is that it is a projection, it is an amplification of capitalism, right? Now, I'm not trying to necessarily shit on capitalism. Like, I'm sure you all have consumed enough content like that, right? More so, social media can incite urgency, right? Gotta do this, gotta do that. If you haven't done that, then you're this. If you didn't do that, then you're this. Okay, well, you need to do this. Hurry up and do this, right? This kind of rushing is supposed to put your brain in beta waves. It's supposed to make your heart rate speed up, right? That's why I had to I didn't delete it. I just uninstalled it for a second, and I listened to music in a different language. And the music in a different language introduces a different frequency in the body, right? That frequency that is being introduced into the body by way of, whatever you're allowing into your ears has a direct impact on your heart rate. Did this experiment by way of testing it on myself. And I gotta say, trying to deliver healing in an environment that is an amplification of noise and more noise and more noise and more noise. What it reminds me of is when people in America go to the pharmacy, right? And they get some type of medicine in an effort to, let's say, not be like sick or whatever, right? And instead they're not curing themselves, right? They're just delaying the effects. But the point is they'll be back at the pharmacy, right? They're not going to they will forever be dependent on those drugs, right? Because those drugs are not made to, cure anyone, right? It's not made to like get rid of the effects, right? Just delay it. This to me is the same thing as presenting, not rituals, but presenting courses. Not that the courses can't work. The courses can absolutely work, right? You can learn things in these environments, but it's in an environment where there is an amplification and a building up on noise, more noise. And you are also presenting healing in that same environment where there is an amplification of noise and there's no opportunity to get quiet with self, right? It's like trying to teach people how to breathe in a burning house. Smoke everywhere. And instead of you removing yourself from the burning house, you learn how to breathe in contaminated, like a contaminated environment, right? A poisonous environment, something that's meant to negatively impact your lungs, but I'm not sure if I'm making sense. But essentially, that's kind of what I see on social media. Social media to me is like a house made of matches, right? And it's burning all the time, right? And the burning is the noise, the amplification of noise, right? People aren't trying to quiet the noise in people, right? I cannot allow you to be stable, right? The reason why I cannot allow you to be stable is because I'm trying to get you to move, right? Which means if I'm trying to get you to move, or I'm selling, or I'm trying to get you to get something from me or whatever, I don't want you to think, right? If anything, I want you to just grab, consume immediately, get it immediately. What does that mean? I have to trigger you into a state of panic, right? Or a state of scarcity. Oh my God, if I don't do this now, right? This is how the game goes, right? I'm not critiquing the game per se, but I'm studying the game, right? And I'm studying its impact on me. And I'm learning, okay, so this is why I need to separate for a little while, right? Not necessarily go ghost, but just compare the effects when I'm surrounded by noise versus when I can hear my mind, right? When I can hear what's going on, the inner intuition, all of that. But I cannot hear if I'm over consuming. But more importantly, it's not just over consuming, because sometimes you're not necessarily over consuming per se, but because of the climate, I think, of America right now, there's a collective kind of like crashing out, and social media kind of amplifies that collective, I want to say, mourning or grief, right? Or it points it out, right? At a certain point, even if the content is helpful, it can encourage more noise, right? And so oftentimes when I think about answers that people need, sometimes you don't need to consume more. The answer that you're looking for is oftentimes buried underneath all of the noise. And you know what happens when you consume too much, or you have allowed too much noise to get in? You spiral, right? And the thing about spiraling is that you cannot help but to spiral. You have to spiral, because you have to get back to center, right? You left center and became extremely susceptible to all of the noise. And mind you, the content can be healthy, right? The content can be some content that I made not too long ago, like, women project a lot, right? It can be a lot of content like that, right? but noise is noise, and too much of anything is bad for you, right? And one thing that I noticed when I was consuming I want to say not a conflux of it, but kind of, because at a certain point you start to see some of the same post over and over and over and over again. At a certain point, I was like, I do not need to read another helpful post. I do not need to read another encouraging post. I need to be introduced to a completely different frequency that would allow me to detach from all that kind of represents what America is going through, the cycle that it's going through, right? It's going through a collective crash out. And people are, they're pointing it out and they're saying you need to do this and you need to do that. All of this can be an add-on to the noise that's already happening, right? It's different types of noise because there are different types of consciousness on different platforms. The noise on TikTok is sporadic. It's very raw, right? People are coming on here crying every 3 posts or so. The noise on Facebook is just, it's a lot of just women being called out. That's kind of the trend. That's kind of the train. It's a lot of that. And then let's see, what's another one? Instagram is still kind of caught up on aesthetic, and it's always been like that. It is very consistent in that type of noise, right? TikTok is just kind of like a combination of everything. It is the biggest spaghetti slap to the wall. But to me, I feel like, I want to say with that in mind, it's not just overconsumption sometimes. It's also just the fact that when you are exposed to the same frequency, and that frequency is based in urgency, survival mode, what's some other things that I've seen? Scarcity, running out of time, all of these things. When that noise is based in that type of frequency and you're exposed to it over and over and over again, it's not enough to get silent. You have to introduce a completely different frequency so that you can detach from the noise that you have allowed in your space, right? And I gotta say, on almost every platform, that is the noise, right? English, because it's a commerce-based language, and there's no soul in it, it kind of makes sense that it's based in survival, right? There's not a lot of storytelling. There's not a lot of art that you can create with this language because of what its purpose, right? And so as a result, it makes sense as to why this country, I think collectively, is extremely loud, right? You're using a dead language that is based in commerce and survival, and then you see a veil being thinned and how the collective is being affected by that thinning of the veil. That is going to produce a collective crash out, right? Because what you see behind the veil, you're usually not prepared for. And then you have social media, which just adds to the urgency. Go, 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 go. Right? The thing is, when you get caught up in beta waves, it will inflame your nervous system, right? It has a direct effect on the rhythm of your heart pattern, right? And so I kind of wanted to present that to you guys today, because all of these downloads really came about just by studying my own body, and what it is responding to and how it's responding, because it was like, it's not enough to get quiet, right? If you're already full of noise, And if you're already full of a certain frequency, your vessel will be extremely uncomfortable, right? Living in your vessel will be uncomfortable. Why? Because of the frequency that it's housing, right? Does this make sense? Anybody any questions or comments? Because I wanna see if what I'm transmitting is making sense. I covered a lot. Also, if you're finding this helpful, feel free to share. Let me share this with Veronica, because Sonia will give you, whoa, do not. Yes, it's very interesting. Okay, yeah. Good. I was just reading Crash Course. I understand completely. Do you think we... yes, absolutely. Absolutely, you attract your reality. Honestly, to put it in more... not simpler terms, but I guess in the term that I would like to use, whatever you house is what you create. And so what I mean by that is, if you house nervous system dysregulation, anxiety, anticipation, right? Mind constantly in the future because you can't bring it to the present. If you are housing these emotions of chaos, you will create that, right? I remember writing this post, but you cannot experience what you are not, right? And so what that means is that if I am... I'm going to ignore that comment. Anyways, if I want to say, if I suffer from low self-esteem, right? Deep-seated insecurity, and I find someone, or I see a man or whatever that I'm attracted to who embodies a higher frequency, I will not be able to ever experience a connection with that man or, woman, whatever, because my frequency is below his, if that makes sense. This is the same with certain circles. When you think about environments, or I don't want to say book clubs, but social groups, right? When you think about social groups, how do social groups protect themselves, right? How do they vet people? They have to upkeep a certain frequency so that they can weed out the people who do not match up with said frequency. That tells the people who are vetting whether or not you belong in this space. Why? Because they're trying to preserve the energy in the room. If you come in with some other low, energy, they be like, I'm sorry, this is not available, it's closed, right? So another way that you vet people is by paywalling things, right? I know who's serious by way of whether or not they pay for access. That's how I know they are very serious. And those are the people that I deal with, right? These are ways to vet certain energies out of certain places. But not only that, this is how you maintain certain realities, right? The energy that I would say keeps that reality alive, right? The minute you allow somebody whose frequency is the opposite or below or whatever, you can taint the room, right? Which can, I don't want to say it can destroy the dimension or destroy the reality, but it can erode at it, right? If you keep them in the space. But you absolutely attract your reality, but more importantly, you experience what you embody, if that makes sense. And so if you want something better, then what you have to do is match up with the frequency that you desire to experience, whether that be a different environment, a different social group, right? Whatever it is, the starting point would be your energy, right? That you have to start with. Hope that makes sense. But I think in regards to English and the density of this country, for me, when it comes to refuge, it is listening to frequencies that are the opposite of this country. What does that mean? It just means that I'm listening to sounds that are not produced here, right? That is what allows me to separate from all that goes on here. You want to be in the world, but not of it. Not in it and of it. I think that's how you can get a very inflamed nervous system, is because you're aligning too much with what is produced here. And everything that is produced here, especially the language, is unnatural, right? I guess what I'm realizing is that I am extremely sensitive to vibrations and sounds. I put that in my video notes, guys. I'm actually putting together a video notes package for you guys so that you can pretty much always have these downloads to reference from. But more importantly, I will be adding more voice notes weekly, right? And so, thank you, Maya. Let's say I launch this thing at 30 voice notes, at a certain point, it's going to go up to 100 voice notes, right? Because I'm delivering weekly, or if I deliver 2 weekly, right? That can happen because a lot happens in a week, and sometimes it's multiple downloads in a week. And so I really wanted to give you all access to that. This was one of the things that I talk about in my voice notes, amongst other things as well, the dynamics between men and women, the politics between them and whatnot. But I think you all would heavily enjoy it, especially if you enjoyed the lives, or the book, right? I think it would definitely be of benefit to you. But this is something that I discovered by way of separating from the noise and observing my body in its reaction to sounds, vibrations, right? So understanding that words, it's not just words that are spells. It is the emotion that can manipulate the frequency of these sounds, of these words that are coming out of your mouth. That is what can either heal you, the person who is speaking the language, or it can inflame your nervous system, right? Depending on what emotion is laced in the language that you speak. But also, this language is soulless. That's another thing. But it can be less of a hazard to you if you are mindful of the emotion that you decide to lace your language with, right? So being very careful of that. Gosh, honestly, I'm trying to see if I had anything else. I'm kind of thinking about that overconsumption thing. I don't feel like I went as deeply as I should have in that, about America being oversexed and heavily focused on the flesh. And this is why people cannot ascend past the body, but more importantly, people are not interested in ascending past the body. Oh, thank you, Mia, for the Thank you, Mia, for the follow and the likes. Thank you. But sorry. Right. People do not desire to ascend beyond their flesh because much of their identity and self-worth is based in the vessel, and how what they produce affects people, makes people feel. And so just kind of learning this cycle of consumerism, right? TikTok is a very interesting app in which it kind of exposes how carnal people are. Now, humans are animals, which makes you naturally carnal. However, this country makes it so you do not desire to go beyond your carnal desires, right? Oh, what's up, Naeem? Hello. That's crazy. I didn't. Thank you, Maya. No, I was just. We were just. I'm gonna backtrack, guys. We were just talking about consumption in America. Animals are wiser than people. I agree. Animals are wiser. LOL. Hey, like I'm so loud. What's up? So we were talking about overconsumption in America, right? And we were specifically talking about, we were talking about a lot. But anyways, we were specifically talking about how people, everything that you produce here, right, is consumed. But more importantly, how consumption is aligned with desirability, right? And so what that means is how much, depending on how much a person wants to consume you, or rather how many people want to consume you, is what is used to measure how desirable you are in the world, right? If America, well, yes, America is a factory. Because it's a factory, it is ran on consumerism, constantly consuming. And so I was making a comparison between artists from other countries versus artists here, or artists who come here, right? Artists who come here, their flesh is the brand, right? And so the more people want to consume them, the more they can sell, the more they will sell right here. The less people want to consume you, and the less people want to consume your flesh based on how it makes them feel, the harder it is to sell here. I was listening to French artists, right? French artists, and I'm sure this goes for a lot of other artists that do not come to this country, or that stay, in their mother country and whatnot. What they sell is storytelling, right? Much of their culture is not oversexed as America's culture is. Because America is oversexed, you need to sell sex. You need to sell your flesh, right? You need to sell not just your music, right? Because yes, people want to consume your music, people want to consume your art, but they want to also consume you. And the more people want to consume you, the more people feel entitled to all parts of you, especially when you start to elevate, the easier it is to sell here. People from other countries, they, not all, but I was specifically looking at French artists, right? When they do not modify or change too much of their appearance, what they are selling instead is the soul in their art, and not so much their flesh, right? And so the people there are very different, right? They're not really like, okay, well, if you aren't selling, the vessel, right, and you aren't using it to make me feel a certain way, right, which is all in the carnal category, then you are not valuable here, right? Nobody wants you. No one wants to consume you, and so you're less valuable. That's not at all how it goes over there. But when you come over here and you have to gentrify your language and gentrify the music and make it more palatable for American ears, you have to get into the carnal desires of the majority of American people because of how oversexed this country is in order to sell here. And so as a result of that, right, because consumption is aligned with desirability, right, the more people that want to consume you, the more people want, the more people desire you, right? And because desirability is used as a way, I want to say, to define yourself, right? If I'm desirable to more than one person, or to a person, whatever, then I must be worth something, right? I must be worth a damn. If I am not desired by any, and so no one wants to consume me, then I'm rejected, right? No one wants me, no one loves me, right? This is what is sold here. And so as a result, people do not want to go beyond their flesh. People don't want to go beyond their body because of how much importance is based, rooted in the vessel, right? Women, not just women, men too, I would say. This country does not allow you to position your vessel as a tool to use for your purpose. No, your vessel is not only to be consumed, but it is to be experienced by others, right? And depending on whether or not they enjoy what your vessel is doing and how it is making them feel, depending on this is what shapes your relationship with yourself. This is what shapes your self-worth, right? And so as a result, you become extremely attached to your vessel. You cannot go beyond it, right? Because of how much importance is placed on it, right? And so when I think about how difficult it is to ascend beyond the body here, it makes sense because there's so much importance placed on the vessel. My worth, my self-worth, right? Whether or not people treat me as a human being is based on my physical. It's based on the vessel alone, right? Now, and it becomes more noticeable once you start working on your, absolutely. And so I'm not saying that humans are not animals, right? We know humans are animals. At your core, you are an animal. You're a mammal, right? What I am saying, however, is that in this country, it is very difficult to desire to go beyond the worth of your vessel, the worth of your body, and to not attach yourself, or rather your self-worth, to your physical, right? What are you beyond your vessel? What comes out of you? What can you create, right? But that's the thing about creations and creativity here. Creation and creativity, art, is used, it is up for consumption, right? It is not deemed valuable or worthy unless it is consumed by a lot of people, a bunch of people, whatever. Now, I'm not saying don't make your coin. Please. This is capitalism. We're not doing that. What I am saying, though, is that the discouragement to experience, I want to say, life beyond how people define you based on how you make them feel, how your body makes them feel, how your oh no, Oh my God, no, live will end. And okay, guys, can you like the live? Okay, never mind. It's cool. It almost tried to end. That was so scary. It's fine. Anyways, damn, what was I saying? The live almost ended. Thank you for the likes. But it was something. Oh, right. So the desire, I think, to experience life beyond how your art makes people feel. Thank you, Naive. How your body makes people feel is not. People don't really desire that, right? When I think about we are affected by chemicals, chemtra. Agreed. Okay, Crash Course, see you. Anyways, so when you think about, I want to say, I'm sorry. It was right at the edge. I think it was because I read that comment in my mind, kind of. But I know I spoke about consumption. I spoke about the desire to experience life beyond that of a consumer, beyond the reality of a consumer, and how it's not encouraged because America is extremely consumer based, right? It's almost, I can understand why people are leaving this country. However, I would say my critique in that is that you aren't leaving the reality, the mental reality that shaped how you think, right? You're essentially bringing whatever you experienced here to other countries, right? And this is because you do not know a reality outside of this place, right? Sorry, I'm getting some notifications, like what the hell? And so it's not enough to leave physically. I think this actually tied in, and Maya, you already heard this, but this tied in into the next subject that I discussed with them, which was frequencies, right? When you are in an environment that is transmitting a very, I want to say the same frequency over and over and over again, and if that frequency or noise is based in survival mode, urgency, hurry up and get that bad, move, right? If that is the noise that you are hearing all the time, which is amplified on social media, TikTok, Facebook, doesn't matter. It's not enough to separate yourself physically, right? Because you're more than likely filled up with the noise that I would say is kind of like, not only is it amplified on social media, but it's very, I don't want to say prevalent. Yeah, it's kind of prevalent in America. Like, given all that's happening, right? AI, Trump taking breath, DEI, or I forgot what that thing is called. The education kind of system being removed, dismantled, destroyed. All of these things happening all at once. And people having to pivot at breakneck speed, right? It's causing a collective breakdown. It is, everything is, yeah, absolutely. To me, this rushing of timelines is because America is kind of going through a reset. America is behind in more ways than one. We're behind in reading. We're behind in shit, the whole, not just the, the economy and the financial infrastructure, but everything. And so this country is kind of going through a breakdown before it goes through a buildup. But that's kind of what's happening as a result. Social media is extremely noisy, right? You see a person crying and crashing out every 3 posts or so. What you would have to do to separate from that noise is to introduce a different frequency. So a sound, a noise that is not create, I don't want to say created, but it's not made here, right? You know, like made in China, made in America type of thing. A frequency that cannot be generated here, right? What do I mean by this? I didn't plan on going this long. Gotta plan on getting off in an hour. But what I mean by that is noise, right? Specifically the English language, right? This is a commerce-based language, a transactional language. What that means is that there is no soul or creativity in the language that we speak. It's a dead language, right? And so when you think about different languages and how the syllables are different, the sounds are different, the vibration is different when you speak it in your body, and therefore it has a direct impact on your nervous system. Listen to music in different languages and see its direct effect on your body and your heart rate. And then listen to music made here, and you will feel like you're on a cycle, a dopamine cycle, and at any moment you will be ready to crash, right? Crazy enough, I put this download in a voice note. I'm putting together a voice note bundle, right? I'll probably release it when I get to about 25 to 30 voice notes, and then I will launch it and send it to you guys. It'll be like a monthly membership type of thing. And what I'll do is add weekly voice notes to them. Eventually it'll get to 100 voice notes, right? But it's essentially, I don't want to say a private podcast, but kinda for you guys, for my audience, right? The people who bought my books or in my email list, right? I specifically want to deliver these downloads to you all because I believe you're picking up what I'm putting down. And it's, you know, it's a bunch of downloads, and I think it would be helpful to you. It'll be set up pretty nicely, but the goal is to get to 100 voice notes, of course, by the end of it. But it will be delivered to you, and you will be, of course, notified via email once I get those 30 voice notes down. But when you listen to words, a language, a song in a different language, right, from English, what you notice is that much of the music is based in storytelling, whereas much of the music here is based in sex and a lot of other things that have nothing to do with storytelling. It's because our language, this dead language, does not really allow for a lot of art and creativity. Because it is used for trade, right? When you listen to other languages which are not made for trade, they are not used, its function is not to trade, right? It's not a commerce-based language. You hear a completely different frequency. And what it does, right? Music here triggers beta waves in your brain. What is that? It's just the brain waves that trigger your fight or flight response. Alpha is a slower brain wave, which triggers your heart rate to go slower, right? Beta waves trigger your heart rate to go extremely fast, right? Because if it is triggering fight or flight, then my nervous system is inflamed. My heart rate, the rhythm of it, I want to say it's not sporadic, but it's not, the rhythm is dangerous, right? And so try that experiment. I'm almost done with the newsletter on this experiment that I tried. But what I notice is when you speak this dead language, right, which is very sharp around the edges and it is blunt. And what I mean by blunt is it's shortened, right? Like it almost cuts off immediately. It does not elongate. There's not a lot of O's or ahs in the language, right? Not a lot of cyclical syllables, none of that. It's stripped, right? And it's made for speed. So getting things done very quickly, right? What that means is that when you are speaking a language, this is already dead. However, if this language is laced with an emotion, let's say intensity, let's say resentment, whatever it is, that will manipulate the frequency, right, of the sound, the vibration that comes out of your mouth. And that vibration, that sound will impact you and your nervous system before it impacts anyone else, right? And so what that means is what I speak and the emotion that I speak it with will have a direct impact on my nervous system, and it can either heal me or it can inflame my nervous system, right? I didn't plan on going this deeply, whatever. But I put it in a voice note, so you guys will always have access to that. And I'll share it once I'm done with everything. But yeah. That's all I really wanted to discuss today. I didn't plan on going into the power of noise, right? Certain noises, vibrations, and whatnot. I just, but it's fine. Like, I'm kind of like, shit, it's fine. It's okay. The voice note bundle, thank you. The voice note bundle, monthly subscription and whatnot will be coming to you soon. So super excited for you guys. Right? I know this is gonna be fun. Super excited for you guys to get all 30 voice notes, bundled package. And what will happen is I will drop weekly voice notes in that voice note bundle, right? So, that's 4, 5, 6 voice notes per month. I'm sorry. Yeah. Sometimes more, right? Because a lot happens in a week, and I may drop 2 voice notes that week. But I'm very excited to deliver this to you guys. I'll notify everyone via email, DM once I have dropped it. And it'll also just be a lot easier to communicate with you all. And most importantly, this is how I like to serve, and I think you guys would really enjoy it. So I don't know. That's really all I had. I'm excited to put this thing together and deliver it to you. Of course, the game part 2 will be coming out, but I'll let you guys know when that comes out. Right now, it's the voice note bundle. That's what's coming soon. So yeah, I'm so glad you all came. Thank you. And I think that's it for the week. I've got a lot. I've got it's not an insane amount, but it's a lot to do. So, all right, guys, thank you for being here. I think it's been over an hour. And yeah, I don't know. I think I'll go live again probably after May 5th. I should be good. So I'll let you guys know via DMs and email, right? Also, I'm dropping what's it called? See you next time. See you, Maya. A newsletter tonight on Substack regarding the download that I got about the English language and its effects on people directly. But that's it. Okay. I think I've been over talking. See you guys. Thank you.